Hi y'all, welcome back, and if it's your first time here, welcome. This video is going to be focused on the nail art, so if you want to know how I apply my Gel X nails at home, you can check out this video here. To get started, I am going to be grabbing a pat gel because I want to hide my natural nails underneath my extensions so they're not poking through my French tips too much. To apply these pat gels, I will be using this mushroom sponge here, but before I get started, I'm going to grab some tape. One of you shared this little hack with me. Basically, you put the tape over the sponge and pull it off. That way, if there's any lint or dust on the sponge, it gets removed before tapping it on the nail. So I'm just getting a little bit of product onto the mushroom sponge, and then I'm going to begin patting this very gently onto the nail. If you're doing this design on your natural nails, you can skip this step because technically there is no free edge that you need to hide underneath something. However, if you are going to be wearing extensions, I do think this process is very useful. What I like to do is start at the area where you can see my free edge so that most of the product is getting there, and then I start blending towards the tip without adding any additional product onto the sponge. You can build this product up with as many layers as you like, but I didn't need that much to do what I needed to do. My natural nail is hidden a little bit, so let's go ahead and do a full cure. Now I'm gonna grab my favorite base color right now. This is Syrup 53 from the Yogurt Nail Korea Bridal Shower Collection. I know I've been using this one a lot, but I genuinely just can't put it down. So let's go ahead and do one thin layer for now. I hope you're not sick of seeing this because it's just too good. I love it. Surprisingly, as much as I use this, I am just now starting to run out of it. So I will be repurchasing it. And yes, I'm going to buy more than one bottle because I just can't be without it. In the background, you may notice another shade. That is Syrup 54 from the exact same collection. And I was going back and forth between these two because I like them both. Syrup 54 is slightly darker. I'm going to show it to you right quick so you know what I mean. I thought this might clash with the animal print, so I decided to stick with 53. By the way, I'm only applying this to my pointer finger and my ring finger. The middle, the pinky, and the thumb are going to have a different design, so let's go ahead and cure. As I was looking at this, I was like, you know what? One more layer of that Syrup 53 would definitely hit the spot for me, so that's exactly what I did. If you are going to be building up your polish layers, make sure that you cure in between each one. Before I cure, I like to take some alcohol and a flat brush to make sure there's no product on the skin because gel left on the skin uncured can cause a lifelong allergy, so we want to be safe. For the rest of the nails, I will be using a color from the DVOK Quiet Core Collection that was gifted to me by Sweetie Nail Supply. I was so excited when I opened this box. I immediately posted pictures on Instagram because I was thinking to myself, if I could be a gel polish collection, this is what I would be. Majority of these polishes are solid colors, but there are a couple in here that are slightly sheer. A good example of this would be Vampire Kiss, which I did wear on its own because it is my favorite color out of the entire collection. This is absolutely the collection for fall and winter season. It's too good, and the range is even better, but you can of course wear this at any point in the year. So I'm taking bronze mustard. When I was applying these, I was being really particular, making sure not to pick up too much polish on the brush. I wanted to see if these were truly a one coat coverage because that's what I was hoping they were when I first opened the box. I consider these to be a one coat coverage, so let me know what you think in the comments down below. There are no wrong answers here. I am going to be taking my thin liner brush and getting closer to the cuticle area, and I will say that these polishes were pretty easy to work with. They self-leveled nicely and they were smooth. I felt that way when I did the swatches, but it is different to use the glass cards versus your nails. I used to do swatch videos. I haven't done one in a while, but if that's something you all would be interested in, let me know and we can start doing them maybe monthly. You let me know. When I do my French tips, I like to have a matte surface. After you cure your gel polish, you're left with a sticky layer. And if you do your French tips on top of that layer, your brush may pull and tug a bit. I like to have that matte surface so my brush can easily glide across the nail. So you can buff or use a matte top gel, but I decided to use a buffing block today. For my French tips, I will be using bronze mustard once again, but I like to put a little bit of this on a palette so I'm not wasting too much product. I'll then get a little bit of product on my thin liner brush and then begin drawing my French tips. Once I have my outline of my French tips, I am going to fill in that empty space with the brush from my polish bottle. It's just wider, so I'm going to be able to get it done faster. We're going to do the exact same thing for my ring finger now. So I'm just starting in the center and pulling towards the side, and then I'm going to go to the other side and then pull upward towards the center. I did take my liner brush and pull some of that color towards the tip because I wanted to make sure everything was nice and even, and that way I can see the areas that just don't look quite right. So I did a little bit of tailoring, and then I went in with my brush from my polish bottle to fill in the remaining spaces. After I cured this, I wanted to take a little break, and I fell in love with this color. I consider this being the final look, but I know y'all would not go for that. It's not my typical color I would wear alone, but surprisingly enough, I really liked it. Just wanted to show you that real quick, but let's go ahead and keep going. For your tortoiseshell design, you're going to choose 2 colors. The first, I'm going to be using dark walnut. The second should be 1 shade darker than the shade you just chose. We don't have 1 shade darker than walnut, so what I'm going to use is this black polish here. I'm going to lay both of them onto my palette because you really don't need a lot of products for this step, and we want to save where we can. Next, we're taking a blooming gel. You can use whatever you have on hand. However, if you don't own a blooming gel, you can actually apply a base gel. It's going to bloom the colors out slower, but it can work. Taking your blooming gel, apply 1 coat of it onto the nail, but we aren't going to cure it once we're done. When I'm working with blooming gel, I do like to let it sit for a couple of seconds so it can self-level before I take my color. I'll be using a dotting tool to pick up that dark walnut shade, and I'm going to begin making my spots on the nail, but don't just tap the nail because you don't want a perfect circle. We do want these spots to be a little unique. So take your dotting tool and spread the color around just a little bit. Use light pressure though, and make your spots different sizes. I do like to place my spots in a zigzag type pattern, so you can see I started off in the upper right hand side of the screen, to the left and to the right again. That way the spots have some room to bloom out and they don't run into one another. For the nails with the French tips, instead of applying the blooming gel all over the entire nail, I'm only going to place it where we have that orange polish. And when I'm doing my spots, I am making them slightly smaller than the thumbnail because of course there is less room. But keep in mind, you want your spots to spread out a little bit so they don't blend into one another. At this point, I like to let the blooming gel do its job. Let it sit so the product can spread, and this is going to come down to personal preference. If you look at your nail and you're like, this looks good, go ahead and cure it. If you feel like, no, it needs to spread a little bit more, leave it be and work on your next nail. I like to let mine bloom for quite some time. The only thing is, make sure you take a little peek at it when you're working on your other nails to make sure the colors aren't running into one another. Before I cure, I do like to take my thin liner brush and gently tap at the edges to help blend it a little bit further. I do feel like it gives a more natural tortoiseshell type vibe in my opinion. When you're doing this, make sure you don't put too much pressure on the brush. You want to be very gentle because you don't want to accidentally put holes into the color as it's blooming. I like the way this looks, so I am going to cure it. And we are going to be going in with our black, but before we do that, I am going to be adding another layer of blooming gel. This time though, I am only applying a thin layer of this to the nail because when you're working with blooming gel, the more you put, the faster the color is going to bloom. The less you put, the slower it works. At least that's what I have experienced so far. So we want to have more control over the black because we don't want it to accidentally bloom too much that it overpowers the entire nail. So I'm using the smallest size of this dotting tool here, and I'm just putting a little bit of black onto the nail and making sure that the spots that I'm creating are smaller than the brown spots that are already on the nail. I am going to outline some of those brown spots as well so that they pop a little bit more. We're done with that, so let's go ahead and do our full cure. I'm looking at these nails and I'm thinking to myself, I want them to be a bit darker. So I decided to take a few shades and create the color I need. So I'm taking Vampire Kiss, which you already know, this is my favorite from the collection. Then I'm taking Dark Walnut that we just used. And last, I'm grabbing Crazy Top Soft and I'm placing them all onto my palette because I'm going to mix them together to get exactly what I'm looking for. Basically, I want a burgundy, but I need it to be slightly sheer, which is where that Crazy Top Soft comes in. Because we still want to be able to see our design underneath this shade. I'm mixing everything with my oval brush here because this is what I'll be using to apply this to the nail, and I'm only going to pick up a little bit of this. We just want a wash of color, so a thin layer is all we need. Applying this to the thumb, the middle finger, and the pinky is quite easy, but when we get to those nails that have the French tip, it might be a little bit difficult. So try to color within the lines. However, let me show you what happens if you go outside of the line. Going to be a bit dramatic here and intentionally do too much. To clean it up, what you would do is just dip your flat brush in some alcohol and wipe it away. Since you already have your French tip basically on the nail, you just follow the lines. After applying this, we are going to do a full 60-second cure. I decided that I wasn't done just yet. I felt like I needed something sparkly or something gold per usual. So I was scrolling Pinterest and I saw a tortoiseshell design and they added these little golden pearls. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. In that picture though, they only used 3 pearls, but as I was looking at the length of my nails, I felt like I really needed 4. So I went back and did 4, and basically I did a zigzag pattern. I did use the Gen B IV Fix Gel to apply these, so we do need to cure this. And last, but definitely not least important, I am applying a medium viscosity glossy top gel all over the nails. Make sure to cover those golden pearls because we don't need them to lose their color before we take these nails off. And then I'm going to do my final cure. And here are what the nails look like all done. But hold up, I really need to tell you this. I create these videos and then a day or so later, I do the voiceover, the editing, and then my final shots. Well, I forgot to film the final shot and I didn't realize it until I was in the middle of the removal process. So if you look closely enough, these 2 nails with the French tips, they're press-on nails. The other nails are still Gel X. I did what I could so I didn't have to scrap this video entirely. So anyway, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you're not subscribed, make sure you do so on your way out. But in the meantime, I will see you in one of these videos here.